Amid centuries of tradition, one question echoes: who really was Jesus? The canonical Gospels shape the picture we know, but what if there were more? What if lost texts, forgotten in the shadows of history, revealed a shocking and contradictory identity of the man who changed the world? These Gospels, hidden and ignored, can bring to light truths that the Church preferred to silence. Is the religious narrative presented to us just the tip of the iceberg? What do these hidden writings tell us about the life, teachings, and true mission of Jesus? As we delve into this mystery, prepare to question everything you thought you knew. What would faith be like if these texts were accepted? What is hidden in the dusty pages of the past? The answer may be more shocking than you imagine. Stay tuned, because the truth may be closer than it seems, and each revelation could change everything. Let's explore these lost Gospels together and uncover the secrets they hold. The lost apocryphal texts and Gospels are works that were not included in the canonical Bible, but which offer intriguing insights into the life and teachings of Jesus. Among the best known is the Gospel of Thomas, which presents a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus. Unlike traditional Gospels, which focus on narratives and miracles, this text highlights wisdom and esoteric knowledge. This raises questions about what was really known about him and what teachings were left aside. Another example is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which shows a closer facet of Mary as an important disciple, possibly even a leader among Jesus' followers. This Gospel suggests that Jesus' relationship with his female followers was more complex than is portrayed in canonical texts. Thus, these lost texts invite us to reflect on the diversity of voices within early Christianity and the importance that these female figures could have had in the formation of the movement. These apocryphal Gospels therefore not only offer new perspectives on the figure of Jesus, but also reveal a more plural religious scenario than what we are used to seeing. The search for these texts leads us to question the reasons why they were left out of the official scriptures. At the same time, they fuel curiosity about the oral tradition that may have existed among early Christians. Furthermore, the interpretation of these texts can vary greatly. While some consider them heretical, others believe they can enrich understanding of the spirituality of Jesus. This interpretative diversity is an invitation to revisit the preconceived ideas we have about the central figure of Christianity. Thus, the lost Gospels become a key to opening new windows on religious history. In this context, the exploration of apocryphal texts leads us to consider that the narrative about Jesus is not monolithic. It is made up of different layers, voices, and interpretations that together can offer a richer, more multifaceted view of what early Christianity actually represented. When we look at the canonical Gospels, such as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we notice some contradictions with the apocryphal texts. Differences in narratives can change how we understand Jesus' identity and ministry. For example, while the canonical Gospels emphasize Jesus' redemptive role, apocryphal texts often portray him as a mystic or philosopher. This contrast raises questions about what it really means to be a savior. These discrepancies are not just academic curiosities, they have profound implications for Christian theology. The traditional view of a divine Jesus can be challenged when we read texts that place him more as a wise man seeking self-knowledge and enlightenment. Thus, understanding your mission can be seen in a new light, where the focus is more on spiritual awakening than on salvation in a strict sense. Furthermore, the differences in the accounts of the events in Jesus' life, such as his birth, crucifixion, and resurrection, are also striking. While the canonical Gospels convey narratives that became fundamental to the Christian faith, the lost texts offer alternative tales that may be equally meaningful to those seeking a broader understanding. This variety of narratives makes us realize that the story of Jesus may be much more complex than previously thought. The analysis of these contradictions also leads us to question the process of canonization of the Gospels. What led religious authorities to choose certain texts and leave others out? This is a question that continues to be debated among academics and theologians. This reflection is fundamental to understanding how history and spirituality intertwine. In short, The contradictions between the canonical Gospels and apocryphal texts offer us a valuable opportunity to re-evaluate the figure of Jesus and the impact that his life and teachings have had throughout history. Each new text found can add more layers to our understanding of who he was and what he meant to different groups and times. In apocryphal texts, Jesus is often represented as a mystical figure and philosopher, which contrasts with the traditional image we have of him as the divine Savior. This depiction suggests that his teachings are not just about salvation, but also about self-knowledge and inner wisdom. In the Gospel of Thomas, for example, we find many sayings that emphasize the search for truth and the importance of spiritual awakening. This view of Jesus as a mystic and philosopher leaves room for a more personal interpretation of his message. Instead of a religious leader who imposes dogma, he appears as a guide who invites people to explore their own spirituality. This may especially resonate with those seeking a more direct, one-on-one connection with the divine, without the need for intermediaries. Furthermore, this representation also suggests that Jesus may have been influenced by various philosophical and spiritual traditions of his time. The cultural context of the Middle East, full of currents of thought, may have shaped his ideas and teachings. Investigating this influence in lost texts can give us a richer understanding of how he navigated these traditions and integrated them into his message. This new perception of Jesus also provokes a question about what it means to be spiritual. Rather than following a rigid set of rules or doctrines, the mystical approach suggests that spirituality is a personal journey, where everyone must find their own path. This can be especially liberating for many who feel alienated from traditional religious institutions. The figure of Jesus as mystic and philosopher invites us to rethink the role of spirituality in our lives. By reflecting on his teachings in a broader context, we can discover new meanings and practices that resonate with our contemporary experience. This re-evaluation is an important step in the search for a faith that is relevant and transformative today. The revelation of a different identity for Jesus brings to light a series of historical and socio-political implications that could change the way we understand the history of Christianity. If the apocryphal Gospels present a more philosophical or mystical version of Jesus, it could challenge the traditional narrative that the Church has established over the centuries. The idea that Jesus was not only a savior but also a critical thinker could lead to a reassessment of the roots of Christianity and its influences on the development of Western society. Furthermore, this new perspective on Jesus could impact the Church's relationship with its faithful. If people begin to question the way in which the figure of Jesus has been shaped throughout history, this could generate a distance from the institutional Church. Believers may feel more inclined to seek a personal connection with Jesus' messages rather than submitting to rigid doctrinal interpretations. The socio-political consequences cannot be ignored either. A new understanding of Jesus could affect how religions interact with each other and how they are perceived by different social groups. By weakening the monolithic view that the Church has about Jesus, space is opened for a more inclusive and pluralistic dialogue between different beliefs. Furthermore, this rediscovery of texts could provoke negative reactions from conservative sectors that seek to preserve tradition. For these groups, the idea of a more complex identity of Jesus may seem like a threat to the stability of their doctrines and the cohesion of the religious community. This could result in internal conflicts and a struggle for control of the religious narrative. Lastly, interpreting Jesus as a mystical or philosophical figure can lead to a renewed interest in spirituality that is not limited to religious institutions. Many people may be attracted to a more personal and less dogmatic approach, seeking a deeper understanding of their own spiritual experiences. Analyzing the reasons why the early Church may have suppressed apocryphal texts reveals much about the power dynamics within religious institutions. One of the main factors may have been the desire to maintain doctrinal uniformity. By excluding texts that presented alternative views on Jesus and his teachings, the Church sought to ensure that its interpretation was the only one accepted and followed by the faithful. Another important aspect is control over the religious narrative. The Church had an interest in shaping the public perception of Jesus, and the inclusion of texts that contradicted this narrative could generate confusion and division among followers. The suppression of certain Gospels can, therefore, be seen as a strategy to avoid questions that could destabilize the faith of many. Furthermore, the suppression of texts may have been a way of protecting the hierarchy and authority of the Church. With the emergence of new interpretations and teachings, the role of religious leaders could be called into question, as the autonomy of the faithful in interpreting the faith could increase. Thus, maintaining a controlled narrative becomes a matter of institutional survival. In a broader context, this exclusion of texts can also be understood in light of the political tensions of the time. The early Church often found itself involved in conflicts with different schools of thought and religions. By suppressing texts that could strengthen these currents, the Church ensured that its dominant position remained unshakable. The analysis of text suppression reveals an ongoing struggle between faith and doubt, between tradition and innovation. Throughout history, the search for answers and the need for understanding have led individuals to question established truths. In this way, the permanence of lost texts in the collective memory can, in fact, encourage debates that challenge the way religion is lived and understood in today's society. In recent years, the emergence of apocryphal texts and lost Gospels has provoked a series of reactions among academics and the general public. Many religious scholars have pored over these texts, seeking to understand how their discoveries can alter the historical perception of Jesus. Academic discussions often intensify, with heated debates about the validity and importance of these texts in relation to the canonical Gospels. It is a topic that attracts both theological experts and the curious in general, all trying to decipher what this new information means for the figure of Jesus. In addition to academics, the public reception to these revelations is quite diverse. While some see these discoveries as an opportunity to expand their understanding of Jesus, others may feel threatened by this new information. For many, the idea that Jesus could be seen in a different light as a philosopher or mystic can challenge deeply held beliefs. Social networks and the media have been platforms where these discussions come to life, allowing people of different beliefs and perspectives to share their opinions. Religious groups, in turn, have varied reactions. Some Christian denominations may reject these new interpretations, maintaining the traditional view of Jesus as the divine Savior. Other groups, however, may find this new information an opportunity to redefine or recontextualize their faith. The way each group appropriates these discoveries can influence their religious practices and even their doctrines, leading to an internal debate about the true nature of Jesus and his message. The implications of these discussions also extend to the field of contemporary spirituality. Many seek a more personal and mystical connection with the sacred, and the figure of Jesus as a mystic and philosopher resonates with these new spiritualities. This search for a more direct and less institutionalized approach to faith can be seen as a reaction to what many consider to be rigid dogmas of religious tradition. Thus, the reinterpretation of Jesus can offer a new perspective for those who feel alienated from traditional religious institutions. As these discussions continue to develop, society appears to be at a time of transformation. The search for a richer and more pluralistic understanding of historical and religious figures, such as Jesus, can lead to a more open dialogue between different beliefs. This exchange of ideas and interpretations can not only enrich individual spiritual experience, but also promote a sense of community among people with different worldviews, fostering an environment of mutual respect and curiosity. As we explore these forgotten Gospels, intriguing questions arise. What else could be hidden in the shadows of history? Is Jesus' true identity even more complex than we imagine? These apocryphal texts not only challenge the traditional view, but also invite us to reflect on our own faith and beliefs. Imagine if the answers we seek were right in front of us, in documents that have been silenced over the centuries. Does the Church have reason to keep these truths hidden? What would this mean for the faith of millions of people around the world? As we consider these shocking revelations, it is essential to keep an open mind. And you, what do you think about all this? Would you be ready to question everything you've learned? Stay with us because this discussion is far from over. New theories and discoveries are always emerging. What mysteries still remain in the unwritten pages of history? Get ready, because our journey into these hidden mysteries is just beginning. Don't forget to leave your opinions in the comments and subscribe for more reality-defying content.